here in Denver, Colorado. It wasn't just a big night of fight. It was a big night of memorable moments.
Conor McGregor with us here in Denver, Colorado. Good left hand from Rockhold. Right hand, right back from Mike Perry.
Could I get a face-off with Conor McGregor, man?
It's an incredible setup here, incredible matchmaking, incredible storytelling. Oh, you had to come here. All these fighters that step in here are warriors, and all have my respect. And I'm into this game, yeah. We'll be into this, yeah.
And we are live here in the Maverick Center here in Salt Lake City, Utah. Folks, what a night. It is going to be historic indeed for BKFC 56.
Whoever's the king of violence right here, this is going to be a great fight.
Perry on the turn. Right hand from Mike Perry. Double jab. Who's the king of violence? I am!
Combat fighting in its purest form, bare knuckle fighting in the city of angels.
80 seconds remaining.
We've got the biggest announcement in the BKFC history we're about to make, so let's make that announcement.
What's up, Knucklemania? The notorious Conor McGregor here. Ladies and gentlemen, the huge announcement that I have for you today. Conor McGregor, myself, and McGregor Sports and Entertainment is now an owner of Bare Knuckle Fighting Championship. Welcome to the big leagues. David Feldman, baby, we did it.
He's now an owner of BKFC with us, and we're going to take this motherfucking thing all the way to the top now.
Hour number 2 now in full effect on the early line, Sirius XM channel 159, right on the SportsGrid network. It's Stubbs and Donnie. It's a Wednesday morning NFL talk. Absolutely gets you fired up. And if you are some of these fan bases we're going to talk about in just a few moments, you will be fired up. But before we get there, thought we had a clean hour number 1. Had some poignant topics here on Major League Baseball. Hit it with a little NFL topics sprinkled in. But hour number 2, Dubsy, is when we kick it in the turbo here.
We have got plenty going on. Happy hump day. We're getting set for week 2 in the National Football League, college football in full effect. And what about out there in the dime? And the playoff push continues. And there's no place I'd rather be than here in the early line. Well, I should say sitting alongside with you, Donnie, chopping it all up. So let's get after it.
It's a beautiful time. We love to see it. We're going to talk some hot NFL topics, but also I say this too. Don't you remember last week, Dubs? Like, we're talking on a Wednesday, and I always say this, and it's a shame too, because I'm like, you know what? Time moves so fast. Like, I understand we just got through week number 1. We got 17 more regular season weeks and the playoffs and the Super Bowl. It's going to be great, but we're already down week number 1. There's going to be a time here, Dubsy. I'm going to say, like, Dubsy, week 11 here in the NFL. Like, where did the time go? So the hot topics that we have, love to get involved with them. But boy, oh boy, does football season go quickly here. And we're already into week number 2. But let's start with some hot topics. And maybe, is it even a hot topic at this point? Because it feels like we've been beating this drum for years now since the New York Giants, A, drafted Daniel Jones, and B, re-signed him, that we've all been saying, outside of the ownership and the general manager, this guy can't play. So you saw opening day, the Giants come back in their throwback uniforms, 100 years or whatever of Giants football, terrible uniforms, even worse quarterback play. Brian Dable, Joe Shane, the general manager, should be ashamed of what they're putting out on the football field. 22 of 42 for Danny Dimes, 186 passing yards, no touchdowns, 2 interceptions. Does it get any worse here for the Giants? And also, Dubs, is the season already over after 1 game?
I think it is from what we saw. I mean, Danny Dimes, can it be Danny Nichols? He was a shell of what we expected then. I tell you what, we didn't expect a lot coming in for a new season with the Giants. But what is going on for Daniel Jones? I mean, where has that promise gone for your young quarterback? He's still only, 27 years of age, but it's the 3rd year playing for Brian Daboll and that offensive system, and they cannot figure it out. Things look so dysfunctional from the jump. And there wasn't a lot of, I guess, raising the bar coming into week one here, but they absolutely underwhelmed in alarming fashion. The Minnesota Vikings, they've never looked better with Sam Darnold, a quarterback, 28-6, absolutely beat the brakes off the Giants in their building. So, no, this was a shocking performance from Danny Dimes. Is the season done? Yeah, it is. 90 million guaranteed reasons why Daniel Jones shouldn't be that starting quarterback. He is bringing nothing to the table, Donnie. I hate to be that guy, but if you're looking to build around something into the future, this ain't it.
They had their chance to. They could have just cut bait with him and just kept him on the bench, drafted a quarterback. They went Malik Neighbors, who is going to be a fine football player in the NFL, but it always starts with the quarterback, and they just don't have that. So let's take a look at the Giants on the season. I say this as an Eagles fan. Like, the NFL is better when the Giants are good. The rivalry between the Eagles and the Giants was one of my favorites growing up because if we just go back a few years, when I was in school in northern New Jersey, the Giants were beating the hell out of the Philadelphia Eagles on a week-to-week basis, Kerry Collins and Tom Coughlin and the boys. Then it completely flipped in the early 2000s. The Eagles have absolutely owned the New York Giants. But also, when you look at the NFL landscape, like you see now, team win total for the Giants, 5.5. To get to the playoffs, a plus 710 price, which is ridiculous. Worst record in the NFL, we'll talk about that more in just a bit, at a plus 600 number. But you see teams in the NFL, like the Philadelphia Eagles and Howie Roseman, won a Super Bowl a couple years ago, always seem to be in the mix now, and a talented roster. The Miami Dolphins, the San Francisco 49ers, they all operate under the same conditions. There's a salary cap and there's a draft. And also, when you're a bad football team, you get put at the top of the draft, and that's supposed to help you out, and you play a worse schedule if you're a bottom-feeding team. You look at the Giants roster and say, how can it be so dysfunctional and maybe the least talented team in the NFL? Almost horrendous at every single position. The offensive line stinks. The quarterback stinks. You have nothing at running back. You lost Saquon Barkley to the Eagles, who scores 3 touchdowns on opening night to help them win, but you couldn't use him effectively. You draft a good young wide receiver with nobody to throw the football to. You get a couple decent defensive linemen and nothing else on that roster here. So if I ask you today, like 6 wins out of 17 games should be automatic. That's a horrendous football team. But do they, Dubsy? Number one, do they get 6 wins? And also, how much longer do you start Daniel Jones?
I think we can correlate the market here. I don't think the Giants are getting to 6 wins. I don't think Daniel Jones will be the starting quarterback in New York by week 6. I mean, he is bringing nothing to the table. And sometimes, Donnie, us as sports fans, as bettors, you have to chalk it up to a bad beat. Put the hand up and say, we were wrong on this one. I don't care how much money was given and guaranteed. I don't care how much you thought he was going to take that forward step coming back in here for this year. Malik Neighbors is meant to be Odell Beckham Jr. 2.0. It's tough to envision that's going to happen coming back for this year. So 6 wins, I think it's an absolute stretch. I don't see how they get to 4 from what we've seen there in week 1. But of course, I'm being a little pessimistic. It's only week 2 that we're getting set for here with kickoff. Maybe they turn things around, but it's really tough if you're going on what we did see last weekend. That was a shocking performance from the jump. I mean, this is a quarterback. It looked like me, Donnie, going out to play for the Giants. I mean, he just looked lost. He didn't have any kind of rhythm or flow. And for a lot of his returning cast and weapons, he should know exactly where they're at and what he's working with. It's the 3rd year coming in with this system. So to look like a fish out of water, not good signs for the Giants here early in the seasons, and even more troubling concern there for Daniel Jones at quarterback.
Yeah, it looks like heading through the season going to be one of those years at MetLife where when they play the Eagles, it could feel like an Eagles home game. Play the Commanders, play the Dallas Cowboys, maybe many more fans than even themselves in the stands. It's tough as a fan to have no hope after week number 1, and it feels like that's what you're getting out of the New York Giants. We'll see if they make changes at quarterback later in the season and where that goes. And also, does Brian Daboll and Joe Schoen survive this season if it's terrible, where they say, well, now we get to pick our own quarterback? No, you picked your own quarterback. I know when those two guys got there, Daniel Jones was already drafted, but you had a choice to move on from Daniel Jones, and you signed Daniel Jones. That is absolutely terrible work here. Now, let's take a look at some other terrible football teams, or at least expected terrible football teams this season in the NFL. The worst regular season record odds here at the FanDuel Sportsbook. It's no surprise in this, too. The top 2 teams, the Panthers and the Giants. Now, as much as I want to bang on the Giants, and they were completely horrendous on opening day in a football game that basically closed at 1.5 points, depending where you're shopping, between those 2 football teams in the Vikings and the Giants. But the Panthers, the show they put on in New Orleans, if that's what you want to call it, this is one of those teams where I was like, you know what? I just need to see them be competent. I just need to see Bryce Young take a step here and be a better quarterback than he was last year. Dave Canales, the new head coach of the Carolina Panthers coming over from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, I thought might be a help here. After one game, it doesn't look like they're going to win a single game this year, Dubsy.
47-10. I've never seen the Saints look so good. But I tell you what, if Dave Canales is the quarterback whisperer now turned head coach, what's he saying in that locker room? I'd be bringing Bryce Young aside saying, hey, I've got something to whisper to you. You ain't a good quarterback. They have got no offensive weapons to build around. So, look, if the Giants are turning back the table for the Carolina Panthers, it is going to be a long road going through this regular season. At plus 260, I see a fantastic number. I see a fantastic price. You are getting that plus money for a team that may only, what they chalk up 2 wins last season, they'll struggle to get to 3. I cannot see a world in which the Carolina Panthers can get to 4 wins this year. Bryce Young, again, they like what they saw coming out of Bama for the young quarterback. I just do not see it, Donnie. There's a different skill set that you can have in the college ranks and then playing with the big boys up in the pros. He doesn't have it. The Panthers don't have it. And for Dave Canales, maybe go from whispering to shouting in this one. Maybe that's going to get a better response from this team.
And by the way, let's look at those 4 teams right now in that odds market to be the worst regular season record odds, right? You look at the Panthers plus 260. What do they have? Hopefully their future franchise quarterback on their roster. The New York Giants, they don't have that. Then you take a look at the Broncos. They hope it's Bo Nix. You take a look at the Commanders. They hope it's Jaden Daniels. You look at the Patriots. They hope it's going to be Drake May here. So not only are you going to get crushed this year for the Giants, you're not even breaking in a new quarterback. You expect to be your franchise guy. That's tough. Look, the process has began in New York. Let's continue to talk quarterbacks and the Green Bay Packers up next.
There is going to be an energy to game time decisions that you will feel night in and night out. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. I want this to be the place that people come to. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
You know what? What can one of these quarterbacks or wide receivers do for me this year to make a wager? It's got to be the running conditions there for Jaden Daniels.
In regards to Jaden Daniels, you know I was on him in regards to the Heisman Trophy. I actually think he's going to do it on the ground, through the air, 40 touchdowns, 4 interceptions, playing in Cliff Kingsbury's offense where he wants to spread it and throw it. I think he's going to put up dynamic numbers.
Pro Football Today, only on SportsGrid.
The only streaming sports betting network. Tips, info, and insights to up your IQ. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
New to the Live Golf Plus app. Watch Live Golf any way you want it. Follow any group. Replay any shot. Anytime, anywhere. Any questions? Watch Live Golf live and on demand.
He had 4 grabs in the first half for just over 30 yards, was injured, came back in briefly, and then had to be carted off.
We were pessimistic on Puka Nakua's injury to the same right knee, of that being a nothing, just a bursa, and that's it, as per Sean McVay. We felt there could be a small PCL component.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
Right back at it. NFL topics continue to hit hard. And also, we are through 1 week here, but we are making some proclamations on some of these football teams that could they come true? Could they go up and smoke? Could they have great seasons? Let's start with the Green Bay Packers here, Dubsy, because this is one of those football teams a lot of people are high on, and rightfully so. You love the way the Green Bay Packers played the second half of the season last year. Why? Because Jordan Love certainly looks like he is going to be your franchise guy for the next 10 to 15 years. He was paid accordingly and a lot of high hopes. The Philadelphia Eagles took on the Green Bay Packers in Brazil in a hard-fought loss for the Packers, but the biggest loss was the second-to-last play of the game where you saw Jordan Love in the pocket get twisted around, bang up his knee. He'll be out for multiple weeks at the least here. Now that, you say, could be devastating to the Green Bay Packers, and who will be their backup quarterback who's going to step into the fold? And I don't have a lot of excitement here from either Green Bay Packers or people looking to back Green Bay right now, because that is Malik Willis. And you take a look at Malik Willis on his seasons that he's played in the NFL, it was almost thought at one time, Dubsy, he was going to be a top 5 draft pick in the NFL, slips to the 3rd round. He's had 3 starts, 350 total yards passing, 144 rush yards, 1 total touchdown, and 3 interceptions. Let's just start here first. Devastating injury to Jordan Love, but how do we feel about Malik Willis coming in to fill in, and can he sort of tread water until we get their starting quarterback Jordan Love back?
Yeah, look, not great news, but not as bad as it potentially could have been there for the Green Bay Packers. The youngest team in the NFL, Jordan Love, he's going to get things together. If it's 3 to 6 weeks, well, the season's not out the window. I think the Green Bay Packers, alongside the Ravens, probably the best losers from week 1. So I'm not losing a lot of stock here. Now, for me, Malik Willis, we know the style of play. He's a dual threat quarterback. How high is the ceiling? It's not high, Donnie. The expectation is not great for Malik Willis coming in here. But some of the other weapons that really shine there, I mean, Reed was fantastic for the Packers. Josh Jacobs, maybe they can lean on him to set the table. And you look at the schedule, they're going to be at home for this weekend, taking on the Indianapolis Colts. I'm really not massive on from what we did see there in week 1. So maybe with a couple of these other complementary offensive weapons, Malik Willis can just funnel this offense and maybe try and grind out a couple of wins. But I tell you what, he's only been in the building for, I believe, the last 2 to 3 weeks. So really doesn't have a great grasp on this offense there either, Donnie. So a little concerning for you Packer fans, especially on that betting side of things. They're now grabbing 3 at home with the line open at 3 at home there. But yeah, not good signs in Green Bay, but could have been a lot worse. Jordan Love, if he can get back within 3-4 weeks, still absolutely love what I'm seeing from Green Bay.
Yeah, and if you think Malik Willis can tread water, as I said, he doesn't have to win every football game he plays, but let's just say go 500. If Jordan Love does come back healthy, that's a great offense. And also, I don't take too much away from that game in Brazil because the field was so slippery. Still, Green Bay is projected to have a very good defense this year also. They just have to be within striking distance. You can't be 0-5, let's just say, before Jordan Love comes back, because then you're not even making the playoffs at that point here. So if we do focus on the Green Bay Packers, and you're right, they do take on the Indianapolis Colts this weekend, and currently right now at the FanDuel Sportsbook, they're getting 3.5 points, and rightfully so. So you look at that total in this game listed at 40.5. And before we get to the outlook on the Packers, I just want to see what the game plan is here from Matt LaFleur, because you can't have the same game plan you had with Jordan Love. Hey, hopefully he can throw 35 to 40 times. If that's going to be the case with Malik Willis, you're going to have much more mistakes and probably give that football game away. And as you pointed out, they're talented at the wide receiving group here. You have to use those guys judiciously, but also Jacobs and that ground game was very good on night number 1 against the Philadelphia Eagles. That's something they're going to have to lean on over the next couple weeks. But if we are setting the table for the Green Bay Packers on the season, you look at their numbers, the playoffs, a minus 150 price in the preseason. That now sits at plus 168. They're the underdog to make the playoffs. The NFC North at a plus 210 price. They now sit at a plus 650 price now currently. And to win the NFC Championship before the season, Dubsy, 9-1 price. That's now 17-1 price. And I agree on all of that. If there was a jumping in point for me, we said, Donnie, would you like to bet them to make the playoffs, win the NFC North, or the NFC title right now? I actually don't mind that plus 168 price. The expanded playoff, 7 teams now make it. Let's just say Jordan Love misses every game in the month of September, and you get him back healthy October throughout. Why can't you have a second-half run, Dubsy, like you had last year from the Green Bay Packers, making the playoffs, crushing the Dallas Cowboys? This is a team that had high hopes here that aren't dashed all the way through because Jordan Love is coming back. If you see those current prices, playoffs, NFC North, and NFC title. For me, I would take the easy way out plus 168 because I think they could still make the playoffs. How about you? What are you thinking on their future for this season?
Yeah, and look, I'm not going to throw everything out the window. I'm still buying a lot of stock in the Green Bay Packers. This is a really good football team. Jordan Love is an elite quarterback once he gets back out there on the field. I guess what works in favor here for the Packers and Malik Willis is they've got the Colts on tap for week 2. Then they take the Titans on the road. Then it's the Vikings. So maybe they can pick up 2 of the 3, maybe 1 of 3, and they're really not going to be in bad standing. You know, some of the other key takeaways for the NFC North going through week 1, the Vikings look good, but I don't think they're going to be fantastic. I think we see a bit of a regression to the mean. Detroit is still going to be Detroit. And I guess for Chicago, you know, there's been a lot of hype and buzz coming in through the preseason. Caleb Williams did not look fantastic. None of the rookie quarterbacks look strong out the gates there. So, you know, if anything's losing here, I think it's the stock behind Caleb Williams in Chicago. So for the Packers, for you Green Bay fans, I wouldn't be giving up just yet. It is early doors. It is a very long and testing season. Every team is going to go through their struggles. Maybe this is the down spot for the Packers, but I'm still very big on their chances to at least make the playoffs. And we're getting that plus money, Donnie. I'm all in on Green Bay. Jordan Love, if it's 3 weeks, absolutely sign me up.
I'm telling you, you know what's going to be interesting this weekend? And sometimes it's unfair to the player because you're right. Malik Willis hasn't been in Green Bay for 3 or 4 years preparing for this moment to be the starting quarterback. He's only been there a short period of time. But I got to wonder how much panic there is going to be from Green Bay in that general manager spot if Malik Willis doesn't play well and they lose this game. And that confidence moving forward, as I said, we're just looking to tread water. This is a winning game. This is a game that you can actually win. Anthony Richardson, look, opening day, 9 of 19. He had one of the best throws you're going to see all season long. But if you watch the tape on that football game, just making the easy throw is not in his repertoire sometimes, and that could hurt. I think that Indianapolis game this week with Green Bay, a lot of running backs and a lot of quarterback running in this game. But I'm interested to see if Green Bay can win this game, they'll stick with Malik Willis. But if they don't perform all that well on offense and drop to 0-2, you're going to look for them to look to more veterans on the market to come in and say, look, we just can't lose all these football games before Jordan Love does come back. Many more NFL topics on the way, which includes the NFC South. Are we losing faith in the Falcons? Can they still win the division? Come on back. Let's talk about it.
There is going to be an energy to game time decisions that you will feel night in and night out. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. I want this to be the place that people come to. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
You know what? What can one of these quarterbacks or wide receivers do for me this year to make a wager? It's got to be the running conditions there for Jaden Daniels.
In regards to Jaden Daniels, you know I was on him in regards to the Heisman Trophy. I actually think he's going to do it on the ground, through the air, 40 touchdowns, 4 interceptions, playing in Cliff Kingsbury's offense where he wants to spread it and throw it. I think he's going to put up dynamic numbers.
Pro Football Today, only on SportsGrid.
The only streaming sports betting network. Tips, info, and insights to up your IQ. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
New to the Live Golf Plus app. Watch Live Golf any way you want it. Follow any group. Replay any shot. Anytime, anywhere. Any questions? Watch Live Golf live and on demand.
He had 4 grabs in the first half for just over 30 yards, was injured, came back in briefly, and then had to be carted off.
We were pessimistic on Puka Nakua's injury to the same right knee, of that being a nothing, just a bursa, and that's it, as per Sean McVay. We felt there could be a small PCL component.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
Football, and more football here in hour number 2 of the early line. It's Stubbs Anderson, Donnie Rightside here, breaking it all down, which includes the NFC South. And I always love, it feels like week number 1, Dubs, is always a referendum. But we have to understand this. You're going to be like, wow, I didn't see that coming week number 1. You know what you're going to do week number 2? You're going to say the same thing like, I thought this football team was really good. Maybe they're not. Or this team was horrendous. How did they win in week number 2? But let's take a look at the NFC South and how it played out. The Atlanta Falcons, if we look before the season started, they were the favorites in this division at a minus 145 price, followed by the Buccaneers, Saints, and the Panthers. If we look today, Dubsy, still in first place in the odds market, but not as wide by a wider margin, is the Atlanta Falcons at a plus 155, followed by the Saints at a 2-1 price, the Buccaneers plus 210, and then there's the Carolina Panthers after one game, a 20-1, not to win the World Championship, not to win the NFC, but just to win their division. It seems like they're already out of it. So let me ask you this question. You saw the Falcons, they lost. The Saints were impressive. The Bucs were impressive. The Panthers were terrible. Did your opinion change on any of those 4 teams after just week number 1?
Yeah, absolutely, Donnie. Am I going to, change up the whole strategy? Not just yet. I thought that the Falcons were very underwhelming. I was big on their chances coming through, but we saw signs of this going, with a perfect losing record through the preseason. There hasn't been a lot of chemistry, not a lot of reps trying to get set for the regular season. So Kirk Cousins didn't look as sharp as expected. So that was a bit of a letdown spot for me for the Falcons. But again, buying into the long game, and those odds tell us everything. It's big picture, and the Falcons, I think they will find a bit of confidence the further we get into the season at plus 155. The Saints put up an absolute scorcher over the Panthers, but I'm not going to run away from this one saying, watch out, the Saints are back. You've got to look at the opposition, and I'm not big on what I saw from the Panthers trying to put up a fight. So the Saints, it was what you wanted to see, but it's not everything for me. And I think the most polished performance out of the NFC South there in week 1 was Baker Mayfield and the Bucs. Baker Mayfield just looks like he's playing with house money. He's always got that dog in him, but he's playing with sort of a renewed confidence, and he's found the perfect landing spot in Tampa Bay. He's got all the weapons around him. This is an offense that really looks to have cohesion from the jump there. So that was probably the most polished performance, I thought, from the division. The Bucs, Baker Mayfield, Big Bad, Mike Evans, Chris Godwin. There's certainly plenty of weapons on that side of things. So they were probably the standout for me out of the South in week 1.
I can agree with you on that, too, because Baker Mayfield was tremendous. Going back and watching that game against the Commanders, are the Commanders great? Not necessarily, but he left off exactly from last year and started up this year as that quarterback that got paid in the offseason and deserves to be the franchise guy. And you got to wonder right now, Dubsy, you see Baker Mayfield and all that success. You take a look at what's going on with the Cleveland Browns. Imagine if Baker Mayfield was healthy and happy and still in Cleveland, maybe the difference between a winning season and a losing season, a division championship and not making the playoffs, and a lot of turmoil on those Browns. But if I look at those 4 teams, I still think the Falcons can win this division. The Steelers have a very good defense. We get that. Kirk Cousins, not a lot of time back from his injury, made some stupid throws in that game, understandably. But I thought their defense was decent. Also loved what I saw out of Bijan Robinson. But if I do say, the Falcons game didn't surprise me. They lost the game. It happens. The Saints blowing the doors off Carolina, get that to a second. Tampa Bay, I thought they would end up beating the Commanders, and they did quite easily. But the Carolina Panthers, there's something to be said, Dubsy, and many people are like me. You sit down and you watch a football game, you say, it's the NFL, you're just looking to be competent. You have a quarterback that was drafted number 1 overall. Things didn't go over well last year. You bring in the new head coach. I don't even need you to win that football game, but I need to see that maybe we turn the page in Carolina to the positive. They got beat so bad. And also, it wasn't as if, Dubsy, right? You show up opening day in Kansas City near the Carolina Panthers, and the score winds up that way. And you say to yourself, boy, a lot of people thought, Kansas City was favored by 13.5, and they blew them out. That was supposed to happen. This was a team on the Saints we weren't sure of after a not-so-great season from them. And for the Saints to look like the best team in the NFL in week number 1 because they played the Panthers, the future right now is crazy because, again, week 1 to week 2, teams are going to change quite a bit. But I was so disappointed out of the Carolina Panthers, they didn't even show up, Dubsy.
They didn't show up, and what concerns me here, Donnie, is, we don't have big expectations for the Panthers, but we at least want to see improvement. And I want to see another young quarterback in Bryce Young, who's had so much promise coming into the league, continue to get beat up week in, week out, because that is going to damage the kid's confidence. And by week 10, he'll be sitting on the sidelines, and it's the Red Rifle taking the starting snaps there for the Panthers. So hopefully they can just rally around and try and find some kind of cohesion with that offense. But both sides of the balls, they got absolutely beat up there in week 1. But show me a little something here coming up week 2. Let's see if we can take a big stride forward. Canales, the Whisperer, he's got his work cut out for him over there in Carolina.
Every fan base, Dubs, is excited for week number 1. Not a lot of fan base is excited for week number 2. But let's go over some good football teams next in the next segment right here on the Early Line.
There is going to be an energy to game time decisions that you will feel night in and night out. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. I want this to be the place that people come to. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
You know what? What can one of these quarterbacks or wide receivers do for me this year to make a wager? It's got to be the running conditions there for Jaden Daniels.
In regards to Jaden Daniels, you know I was on him in regards to the Heisman Trophy. I actually think he's going to do it on the ground, through the air, 40 touchdowns, 4 interceptions, playing in Cliff Kingsbury's offense where he wants to spread it and throw it. I think he's going to put up dynamic numbers.
Pro Football Today, only on SportsGrid.
The only streaming sports betting network. Tips, info, and insights to up your IQ. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
New to the Live Golf Plus app. Watch Live Golf any way you want it. Follow any group. Replay any shot. Anytime, anywhere. Any questions? Watch Live Golf live and on demand.
He had 4 grabs in the first half for just over 30 yards, was injured, came back in briefly, and then had to be carted off.
We were pessimistic on Puka Nakua's injury to the same right knee, of that being a nothing, just a bursa, and that's it, as per Sean McVay. We felt there could be a small PCL component.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
The early lines on the early line here on a Wednesday. Marquee action starts tomorrow night. Buffalo, Miami. Another great game on Sunday afternoon. We'll talk about in just a few moments here between the Saints and the Cowboys. Now we're talking about good football here, not bad football. The Buffalo Bills opening day, were they great? Not necessarily, but they picked up the win over the Arizona Cardinals in a hard-fought game that came down to the final drive where Buffalo needed to stop and got it here. Now, let's focus on tomorrow night's action. A huge tilt in the AFC East. 1-0 Buffalo, 1-0 Miami. Both of these teams in close games week number 1. Thursday night football typically is an advantage for the home team, which the Miami Dolphins are. We look at the FanDuel Sportsbook. They opened this line at a minus 1.5 price, now sits at a 2.5 price here as a favorite for the Dolphins. The Buffalo Bills come to town. Initial thoughts on this game and how it plays out, Dubsy? What are we thinking here between Buffalo and Miami?
It's going to be a great matchup. It always is between these divisional foes. We get to see a little dance for Thursday night football. If you look at the past trends, it's been all about the Bills, 4-1 through the last 5. But you highlighted, Donnie, having that home field advantage, especially here in the month of September. It is going to be a hot Thursday afternoon out there in South Beach. So I really think that favors the Miami Dolphins. They maybe lose that extra point or two as we move through the regular season. But for Thursday night football, I think the Dolphins only take a step forward. They were very sluggish in week 1. They were lucky, I believe, to get that win against the Jags. The Jags went scoreless in that second half. So I think Miami moving at a much higher clip. We saw Tyreek Hill and Waddle. They're going to be the key threats again here. And for the Bills, I guess what's concerning for me is coming off that track meet, that shootout with Arizona. It was an exciting game, plenty of points, but it was the defense there for Buffalo. They are going to have to improve on that side of the ball. Otherwise, Miami could put up a 30-piece, a 40-piece? And for Josh Allen, how much can he do to carry the Buffalo Bills? 2 passing touchdowns, 2 rushing touchdowns. He got banged up. It looks like he's going to be a go for this one, but it's going to be a long season for Josh Allen if he continues to do everything for Buffalo in trying to will his way across that finish line.
It's a great point you bring up, Dubs. Let's start there with Josh Allen. Phenomenal football player, no doubt about it. And you're right. 2 touchdowns in the air, 2 touchdowns on the ground. Absolutely tremendous performance overall. And I believe he scored a touchdown and it got called back, so he could have had even more for himself. But let's focus on him. He had to do everything in his power to just get by the Arizona Cardinals, not the Kansas City Chiefs, the Miami Dolphins, the Philadelphia Eagles. That's something to keep an eye on. And also the usage rate for your quarterback. You're going to have to sooner or later lean a little bit more on the running game outside of him, which I thought James Cook was very good on opening day against the Arizona Cardinals. But if we set the expectations, for me, the Cardinals have one of the worst defenses, if not the worst defense in the NFL. It's easy to go up and down the field. They're at home against them, and it should be. They found themselves in a 17-3 deficit against one of the worst teams, I believe, in the NFL when it turns out maybe 6 wins total, 5 wins, somewhere in that range for me, for the Arizona Cardinals. But they did win the ball game. They did come back, and there's something certainly to be said for that. They need their younger wide receiving core to step up this weekend, because last week you saw the Arizona Cardinals. They have one of the more wily quarterbacks out there, and that's with Kyler Murray. And he was tremendous last week, making plays with his feet and throwing the football. Tua Tagovailoa, not so much plays with his feet, but he is a mobile quarterback. But if you can't defend down the field against the Miami Dolphins, you're going to be in some trouble. Devon Achane, Raheem Mostert out of the backfield, really talented. Tua Tagovailoa with those 2 wide receivers in Waddle and also Tyreek Hill, well, I think we get some points. Let's flip it over here. 48.5 is the total for this football game tomorrow night. Is any thoughts of the under in this? Because I love both of these offenses, and both of these teams should move the football. Even though it's a division game on a Thursday night, and when a lot of sloppy play last week, I'm expecting an over here, Dubs. I am.
Yes, send the points here on Thursday night football. The Bills, we know they can move it at a high clip. Josh Allen, more of the same. You feel like just pulling him aside saying, hey, we need you for the whole season. We don't need to throw everything on the line here for week 2, but you know he's going to, because this is a massive spot to get up to. Going against the Miami Dolphins, we know from Miami, they can score with the very best of them. They're probably the most explosive offense in the National Football League. So look, at 48.5, we've seen a bit of movement for that total. Don't overthink it. I think we do see plenty of points, and we should see it from the jump. If the Dolphins get off to a fast start, they can lean on that run game, but the Bills will be playing catch-up football, and I think both sides are going to really try and move it up tempo. So it should be a very exciting game, one of the bigger totals coming in for week 2, but don't overthink it. Overs certainly looks to be the play against the primetime spot.
And don't overthink tomorrow night, 8:15 p.m. Live in studio, the boys on Pro Football Today will be locked and loaded for that AFC tilt. So make sure you don't miss out. Tune into the SportsGrid Network. We got you covered during football season. How about Sunday afternoon? 1 o'clock game. New Orleans Saints, Dallas Cowboys. 2 of the more impressive teams for me in week number 1. New Orleans flatlined the Carolina Panthers. The Dallas Cowboys went on the road and embarrassed the Cleveland Browns. This line opened up as a 6.5-point favorite. You know where it still sits today, Dubsy? You guessed it. Graphics shows it. Minus 6.5, a total up from 45.5 at the opening number to 46.5. 2 teams playing good football, meeting in week number 2. Are we agreeing that the Dallas Cowboys should be just about a 7-point favorite here?
Yeah, absolutely. At home as well in Dallas. I thought the Cowboys were fantastic going in to Cleveland there for week 1 to get the big score. Dak, he's been paid. He's got his guy in CD Lamb. They try to get the run game going as well. And Brandon Cooks, he looked really strong out the gates there. For the Saints, monster performance. But that's the one thing we've got to keep a little caution with as bettors. Don't take too much away from week 1. You look at who the Saints were going up against, probably the biggest cupcake in the NFL. So the Cowboys booked at 6.5. You're getting almost a full touchdown there. I think this is going to be dominant fashion. I think it could be a bit of a backward step for the Saints. The Dallas Cowboys at home on a fast track. I think we see plenty of points from Dak Prescott, who's going to put himself right in the conversation again for that MVP going through the regular season.
This is going to be an interesting matchup, too, because if you look at the Dallas Cowboys, that was an impressive team victory. Special teams were great. Defense was great. Offense moved the football when they needed to. But I don't know how much we can take away from both of these games that these two teams played, because Cleveland looks like, I don't know what the expectations were coming into the season. I didn't think they obviously could win the AFC North. I thought there were better teams involved up there, which include the Baltimore Ravens, who I think are going to win that division. But if we are looking from a Dallas perspective, I love the fact that Dak Prescott got paid on game day, went out and performed with CeeDee Lamb. Didn't make any mistakes there, moved the football, and just let the Cleveland squad, the Browns, just basically disintegrate in front of our eyes. But also, if we take a look at the New Orleans perspective, how much, Dubsy, can we take away from week number 1, where they were at home and looked like a JV football team with the Carolina Panthers? They're really going to step up in competition. And sometimes, Dubs, this is what makes week number 2 so tough, because you saw the Cowboys play a complete game. You love to see that. You saw the Saints maybe wake up some people across the NFL going, oh, maybe this is the year the Saints will be good, and not last year, as most people thought the Saints would be a runaway winner possibly in the NFC South. How is your viewing of these two teams that played great football week number 1 continue into week number 2?
The Cowboys showed plenty of polish. I think they're one of the best teams in the NFL. The highlight for me is with the Saints there going against the Panthers. Donnie, on the off days when there's no NFL football on Tuesday or Wednesday, I'll crank out the PS4. I'll get the PlayStation out and play a little Madden. When I get behind, I just start throwing Hail Marys. A 7-point margin becomes 14, it becomes 21. And I think that's what we saw from the Saints going against a young quarterback, a team out of their depth in week 1 there with the Panthers. So I think we've got to be a little cautious with the expectation behind the Saints. Alvin Kamara, he turned the clock back. He looked really strong. I love what I saw from Shaheed. And Derek Carr, he looked really comfortable. But I guess it's all about the consistency for Derek Carr at quarterback. But maybe this is the spot where he can finally really shine and bring his best effort here for the Saints. I tell you what, this is going to be a massive, massive challenge coming up on Sunday going against the Dallas Cowboys, who really do look to have threats all across the board. And that defense is going to be coming a lot quicker in the pocket there towards Derek Carr. So let's see. Pressure makes diamonds. Let's see if that's enough for the Saints to step up and cover that touchdown spread.
I know you're not supposed to handicap based on bias, but last year I had the Saints winning the NFC South, and they disappointed me so much. It was one of those football teams that I wasn't paying a lot of attention to here in the offseason. They looked fantastic week number 1. If you go into Dallas for the Saints and knock off the Cowboys, they're going to start to turn heads, and maybe they should be the true favorites here this year in the NFC South. Let's talk some Major League Baseball next. The playoff run is upon us, and we'll talk about it next.
There is going to be an energy to game time decisions that you will feel night in and night out. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. I want this to be the place that people come to. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
You know what? What can one of these quarterbacks or wide receivers do for me this year to make a wager? It's got to be the running conditions there for Jaden Daniels.
In regards to Jaden Daniels, I was on him in regards to the Heisman Trophy. I actually think he's going to do it on the ground, through the air, 40 touchdowns, 4 interceptions, playing in Cliff Kingsbury's offense where he wants to spread it and throw it. I think he's going to put up dynamic numbers.
Pro Football Today, only on SportsGrid.
The only streaming sports betting network. Tips, info, and insights to up your IQ. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
New to the Live Golf Plus app. Watch Live Golf any way you want it. Follow any group. Replay any shot. Anytime, anywhere. Any questions? Watch Live Golf live and on demand.
He had 4 grabs in the first half for just over 30 yards, was injured, came back in briefly, and then had to be carted off.
We were pessimistic on Puka Nakua's injury to the same right knee, of that being a nothing, just a bursa, and that's it. as per Sean McVay. We felt there could be a small PCL component.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
One of our favorite segments here on the Early Line, buy or sell. We have some questions here that who's going to make the playoffs? Who has a chance to do damage in the playoffs? Always a lot of fun here. It's Stubbs Anderson, Donnie Rightside on a Wednesday morning right here on the SportsGrid Network. Now, we love football. We are entrenched in football season, even after just 1 week in the NFL. But the one thing we have to understand is there's a lot of things happening from April, May, June, July, August into September, which leads us to October baseball. And boy, oh boy, playoffs in any sport, absolutely the most fun you can have. Hopefully profitable as well. But we got some questions that we have to answer here. And if we look at the Major League Baseball wild card standings in each league, if it ended today, the teams that would be in the playoffs, it would be the Orioles, the Twins, and the Royals in the AL. If we're looking in the NL, it would be the Padres, Braves, Diamondbacks, and Mets. And you might say, well, how is there 4 teams? There's only 3 wild card spots. 2 teams are tied here. That's the New York Mets and the Atlanta Braves. Now, the question is going to be, if you do make the playoffs as a wild card and you do get hot, is there a possibility that a wild card team can take down a World Series championship? So, Dubsy, I'm going to start with you first in this buy or sell. Wild card team will reach the world, not even win it, just reach the World Series this year for you. Buying or selling that?
Buy. And it's all about the Kansas City Royals getting set to rumble at plus 1,100. You know, at the pointy end of the season, October fast approaching, you need to know the schedule. And I think it lines up pretty favorable here for Kansas City. They'll take on the Pirates, not with a lot to play for in that next series. Then they welcome in Detroit and the Giants into their ballpark. Then they go on the road to take on the Nationals. So I think all things are shaping up for the Royals to make a bit of a run. And wasn't it October back in 2014, a little 10-year anniversary when they found that momentum? I think it may have been there, Donnie. And look, the arms are starting to find a bit of stride here as well. Cole Reagans has been strong. Seth Lugo put up a masterpiece there on Tuesday evening. They've got the firepower. Bobby Witt Jr., one of the most exciting weapons in all the majors right now. Tommy Pham in the mix. So I think Kansas City could certainly do enough to make it into October and could do enough to rattle a couple of the big contenders. And I dare say, make a little World Series tilt, Donnie. So it's the price play for me with Kansas City.
Yeah, you see those price points out there, too. It's the Orioles, Twins, and Royals, plus 340, plus 850, and 11-1. There are big price point and disparities between those because there is still a chance that the Orioles can win the AL East, which would take them out of that wild card and put them in better standing. So that's sort of a factor that goes into it. The one thing that we do look at, and for me, I would buy it as well. And here's the reason. When typically wild card teams make the playoffs, you say, well, they're not as good as the teams that led their divisions and certainly have number 1 overall seeds. And I would agree with that. But as we know, Dubsy, just like playing a golf game, when you are on your game and you are grinding on a week-to-week basis here, you're probably going to be better off than the guy that goes, I'll parachute in for every 3 or 4 weeks to play a tournament. The reason we bring that up in Major League Baseball is if you're fighting for that final playoff spot, Dubsy, over the final couple weeks, you're already in playoff mode. You are already locked and loaded, knowing every day you go to the ballpark, you got to win this game, and you're playing on an everyday basis. You take a look at some of the teams that are 7, 8, 9, 10 games lead in their division. What do, Dubsy, down the stretch, the final week of the season? Let's take some time off. Let's rehab our bodies. Let's set our pitching rotations. We're not even going to play the first round of the playoffs for the 2 teams that have the byes, and then you just parachute back in and have to flip that switch when you're going to play a wild card team that's already been in grind mode, that's already won a playoff series, and is ready to do battle right out of the gate, and you can surprise them as the higher-seeded team. So it's always fun to watch it work out, and quite frankly, in the past couple of years with the wild card that we have, you do see some of those upsets in those early rounds, and we expect that to happen this year. So, yeah, I'll buy a wild card team can make it to the World Series this year. Let's keep it in Major League Baseball. Other hot topics, the National League. And, yes, the wild card race is heating up, and that's a big topic. But how about Rookie of the Year? It's coming down to 2 people. It's Jackson Merrill and it's Paul Skeens. Look at Paul Skeens on the season. If you would have told me this day in September that Paul Skeens is going to have a 10-2 record, he's going to be 2.10 for his ERA, and 151 strikeouts, and he's not the odds-on favorite to be the actual NL Rookie of the Year? That's crazy. So I'm going to ask you this question, Dubsy. Buy or sell, Paul Skeens would be an all-time Rookie of the Year snub if he does not win Rookie of the Year this year.
I'm buying. I think it would be an all-time snub. I think it will be an all-time snub. You know, look, obviously the star power is going to be there behind Paul Skeens. Truly remarkable season, what we've seen there from the rookie. And again, he just set a new record there. Most case for a rookie were in that Pirates uni. So look, cannot knock what we have seen. But for Jackson Merrill down there with the Padres, you know, we get to see what he's doing on the nightly. So since the All-Star break, we've seen a massive jump in the market. It was Skeens at minus 1,200, and now he's the outsider looking in. And I think it's a little too late in trying to play catch up. No knock towards Paul Skeens, truly special stuff from what we have seen. But again, I think the longevity of the season leans towards Jackson Merrill and the Padres. And you look at the numbers that he's put up, absolutely monster year there as well. So going to go with Merrill, and I do think it would be an all-time snub for possibly the next generational talent coming in to the Bigs, Donnie.
Yeah, pitcher can only do so much, which I know it's incredible about this. Like, the Pittsburgh Pirates aren't going to make the playoffs, which is a problem why Jackson Merrill does get a little bit of a bump. But the Pirates as a team are under 500. Paul Skeens is 10-2. Like, think about that. My baseball team's under 500, but when I go out there and pitch, I'm 10-2 overall with that ERA. It's phenomenal. Now, also, if you're looking at some of those numbers today at the FanDuel Sportsbook, they continue to drop. Like yesterday, on a day-to-day basis, obviously these numbers will change. Skeens, whenever he has a good pitching performance, will move up. And Jackson Merrill, if he doesn't hit a game-winning home run, he's going to move down. When we opened the show today, Dubsy, at the FanDuel Sportsbook, Jackson Merrill was a minus 400 price to win this award. As it sits right now, almost 2 hours into the show, he's now a minus 370 price with Paul Skeens a plus 260. And it looks like both of those guys will be fighting for this. But also what comes into the equation now is we know, barring injury, Jackson Merrill is going to play down the stretch because they need him to be in that lineup for the possibility of winning that wild card. Paul Skeens and the Pittsburgh Pirates, they don't need him down the stretch here to not make the playoffs. So the question is going to be is how many more innings is Paul Skeens actually going to get on the mound? How many more wins can he rack up and strikeouts here? Because if you can't pitch and they don't let you pitch, there's no more wins, there's no more strikeouts, there's no more lowering that ERA. We'll find out here, but Jackson Merrill right now, a minus 370 price to win that award at the FanDuel Sportsbook. Interesting stuff all the way through. A lot more hot topics in Major League Baseball, which includes the next segment. Keep it going and buy or sell. It's Donnie and Dubs on a Wednesday morning right here on the SportsGrid Network. We will be right back.
There is going to be an energy to game time decisions that you will feel night in and night out. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. I want this to be the place that people come to. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
You know what? What can one of these quarterbacks or wide receivers do for me this year to make a wager? It's got to be the running conditions there for Jaden Daniels.
In regards to Jaden Daniels, you know I was on him in regards to the Heisman Trophy. I actually think he's going to do it on the ground, through the air, 40 touchdowns, 4 interceptions, playing in Cliff Kingsbury's offense where he wants to spread it and throw it. I think he's going to put up dynamic numbers.
Pro Football Today, only on SportsGrid.
The only streaming sports betting network. Tips, info, and insights to up your IQ. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
New to the Live Golf Plus app. Watch Live Golf any way you want it. Follow any group. Replay any shot. Anytime, anywhere. Any questions? Watch Live Golf live and on demand.
He had 4 grabs in the first half for just over 30 yards, was injured, came back in briefly, and then had to be carted off.
We were pessimistic on Puka Nakua's injury to the same right knee, of that being a nothing. just a bursa, and that's it, as per Sean McVay. We felt there could be a small PCL component.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
Oh, this is a good buy or sell topic right now to end out hour number 2. Get involved in this one. We see it in the past. I want to set the table for this, and I always get a kick out of this. It's very easy for Major League Baseball players, NFL players, and hockey players just to say the right things in front of the microphone, Dubsy, as opposed to saying, you know what, let me let my true feelings out here. Because the one thing we know is they're put on a pedestal, and rightfully so. Superstar athletes, kids look up to them. Everybody's cheering for them. You want them to stay with your team and you want them to do well, but also, Dubsy, you want them to be there, right? We know the money is going to be the money. I still get a kick out of last year. Aaron Judge, one of the best players in Major League Baseball, and quite frankly, when it all goes down, will be a Yankees legend. He was asked directly, microphone in his face, I believe at the All-Star break, hey, look, Yankees fans love you. What do you have to say to him? He basically said, well, if I'm here, great. If I'm not, there's other Yankee players you can cheer for it. Not what the fan base wants to hear, because it's simple to say, I love being a Yankee. I want to be here long term. My goal is to retire a New York Yankee, because even if it doesn't happen, at least you get the good vibes in there, and maybe the public can sway the opinion for your hometown owner to pay you just a little bit more money than everybody else to get you to stay. So if we're talking about Juan Soto, here's what he told ESPN yesterday, quote, who doesn't want to be a part of Yankees history? I think the only way to be a part of Yankees history is being a champion. Now, does that actually mean if I win a World Series this year, I'm part of Yankees history? Now let me get paid by my crosstown rival, New York Mets, because they'll pay me more money? So the buy or sell here for us is, will Juan Soto be a New York Yankee next season? Which means, Dubsy, he's probably going to get paid north of a $500 million contract. Is he a New York Yankee next year, buy or sell?
Yes, Juan Soto is going to be back in the pinstripes. He's going to get the bag. We know for Scott Boras, always pushing to have his players hit that free agency. And I guess, slugging alongside Aaron Judge, this is, it truly is a gift for us sports fans. A couple of generational talents there for the one outfit. And what's working for Juan Soto in his favor, he's still only 26 years of age. He has made every post a winner in New York this year. It looks like he's absolutely loving things in the clubhouse as well. You've got a lot of durability. There's no real concern towards injury or talent or a drop-off there on that side of things. So it's going to be quite the bidding war once we hit the off-season. But I do believe Juan Soto will be back there for the pinstripes. You look at all the moves that they did make at the deadline there, and everything points towards the Brian Cashman. He's planning towards the future, and I think that future in New York for the Yankees, not the Mets, includes Juan Soto, but it's going to be a hot off season to say the least, Donnie.
No, you also, and again, the quote, it's kind of funny to me because he sort of says the right thing, right? He said, I want to be a part of Yankees history, which means being a champion. So if he does win this year, he is in Yankees history and a champion, and then could say, well, I did my part here. I want to move on and sign with another team, which would be tough on the Yankees. They gave up a pretty decent package to get Juan Soto. And obviously, if he's going to be high up in the MVP standings, and then they are going to win a championship, if you are the Yankees, you do want to bring him back. But there are a lot of deep-pocketed owners, which includes a team right in your own city that would love to steal the headlines and the back pages on New York papers and say, we got Juan Soto away from our rival here. So buy or sell for me. You know his agent is, right? It's Scott Boras. He doesn't care about loyalty. He's just all about the almighty dollar. And even if the New York Mets offered $1 more than the Yankees, he'd probably have his client go to the New York Mets because why? It's $1 more that he can make in that environment. I don't know if he's going to leave the Yankees, but if you're asking right now, buy or sell, somebody's going to come out of the woodwork with such a ton of money, and it could be the New York Mets, that they could sway his opinion, and Scott Boras will certainly push him over in that direction. So for me, I'm going to sell it. Juan Soto will be a Yankee next year. I'm not buying. I'm selling at this point. It'll be interesting to watch it play out. But getting back here, Dubsy, to my original point, why is it so hard from some people just to say, like Juan Soto could say, from the minute I got here, put on those pinstripes the first time, I wanted to say to myself, I'm going to retire a Yankee. Those physical dollars will appear in the offseason. We'll make that right. Right now, I want to win a world championship. I want to retire a Yankee. And even if he doesn't, You buy extra time with the fans and put the pressure on the ownership's groups. That's all he should be saying here, Dubsy. Come on.
Loyalty. It's in my DNA. Was that Kendrick Lamar or was it Juan Soto? These professional athletes, Donnie, they're not playing for the patch on front of the jersey anymore. They're playing for the name on the back, and all they care about is making a fast buck. But hey, I do think the Pinstripes have a really good chance of retaining that signature. Would it be enough to win a World Series? Would that be enough to bring Juan Soto back to the Yankees for another season into the future at what, $500 million plus? Geez, I wish I was better at baseball, Donnie. That's all I can say.
Aaron Judge, Juan Soto. The one thing we do know, Dubsy, they ain't like us, and that's for sure. Hour number 3 on deck at this point. Coming up, more NFL action. It's Dubs, it's Donnie. The good times roll along. Don't miss out. We'll be right back here on The Grid.